The December night was intensely cold, the kind that made breathing painful. The ground, illuminated by a single harsh streetlight, was marked with a deep red smear, a violent contrast against the dull gray of the concrete. The smell of blood, heavy and metallic, filled the air, a stark reminder of what had occurred. Police cars, their flashing lights creating a silent, repeating pattern of red and blue, formed a ring around a parked car. Inside the vehicle, Michael Carter sat quietly, his hands resting on the steering wheel. His face, normally calm and kind, was now expressionless. He spoke in a low, even voice, reciting verses from the Psalms, the words echoing in the frozen air. The scene was shocking. The violent aftermath of a terrible act, combined with the strange calmness of the man at its center. The silence was heavy, broken only by the static from police radios and Carter's steady recitation. Two bodies lay nearby, their forms motionless. The sharp difference between the violent scene and Carter's calm behavior created a disturbing image, a moment of inexplicable terror frozen in time. Michael Carter was more than just a man. He was a fixture in the community, a respected pastor whose words carried weight and comfort. His presence was a beacon, a source of guidance for many. He was the man people turned to in times of trouble, the one who offered solace and strength. His sermons resonated, filled with messages of love, forgiveness, and divine justice. The image of him, the devoted shepherd, was deeply ingrained in the minds of his congregation. But that image shattered on that cold December night. The man who spoke of peace now stood amidst a scene of brutal violence, claiming a justification that chilled the very air. He spoke of betrayal, of a sacred trust broken, and of a justice that he believed was not of this world. The contrast was stark, almost unbelievable. The gentle pastor transformed into a figure of violent retribution. What could possibly drive a man of such faith, a pillar of his community, to commit such a horrifying act? The whispers of infidelity and a terrible disease began to circulate, adding layers of complexity to the already shocking event. The man who preached forgiveness now stood accused of taking lives, claiming it was a form of divine punishment. This contradiction formed a disturbing puzzle, a question that demanded an answer. Michael Carter possessed a captivating charisma, a natural magnetism that drew people to him. His presence filled a room, his voice resonating with sincerity and conviction. Within the community, he was known as a beacon of hope, a man who consistently extended a helping hand to those in need. Stories of his kindness abounded. The late-night hospital visits, the quiet counsel offered to troubled teenagers, the tireless work he did to organize food drives and community outreach programs. He had a way of making each person feel seen, valued, and understood. His marriage to Naomi was often held up as a model of devotion, a picture of perfect harmony. They were the ideal couple, always side by side, their smiles radiating warmth and affection. At church functions, they moved together with an effortless grace, a testament to their deep connection. Naomi, with her gentle demeanor and quiet strength, complemented Michael's dynamic personality. The church itself was a sanctuary, a place of solace and community. Michael's sermons, delivered with passion and conviction, resonated deeply with his congregation. He spoke of faith, forgiveness, and the power of redemption, his words offering comfort and guidance to those seeking direction. The congregation adored him, viewing him as a shepherd who truly cared for his flock. His reputation for unwavering integrity and genuine compassion seemed unassailable, a solid foundation built on years of unwavering service. The image of Michael Carter was one of unwavering goodness, a man whose life was a testament to his faith. His presence brought a sense of peace and stability to the community, a reassuring constant in an ever-changing world. Naomi entered Michael's life like a breath of fresh air. They met at a charity event, their connection immediate and undeniable. She was drawn to his compassion, his unwavering faith, and his genuine interest in others. He, in turn, was captivated by her quiet strength, her thoughtful nature, and her radiant smile. Their courtship was a whirlwind of shared values and mutual admiration, culminating in a wedding that was the talk of the community. However, Beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect union, subtle tensions began to emerge. The demands of Michael's ministry often left Naomi feeling isolated, a silent observer in her own life. The endless stream of people seeking Michael's counsel, the late-night meetings, and the constant demands on his time slowly chipped away at their intimacy. Their once easy communication became strained, filled with unspoken resentments and a growing sense of distance. While Michael was busy saving souls, Naomi found herself increasingly alone, her needs and desires often overshadowed by the weight of his calling. The vibrant spark that had once ignited their relationship began to fade, replaced by a quiet resignation. She started to seek solace and connection elsewhere, a dangerous path that would ultimately lead to tragedy. Derek Malone's past was a stark contrast to Michael's pristine image. He carried the weight of a criminal record, a symbol of a life lived on the fringes of society. His name was often whispered with a mix of fear and disdain. Yet, Michael saw something in Derek that others did not, a potential for redemption. In a surprising act of compassion, Michael took Derek under his wing, offering him a chance at a new beginning. He welcomed him into the church, providing him with a job, a place to live, and a community that embraced him despite his past. Derek, initially wary, slowly began to respond to Michael's unwavering faith in him. He became a dedicated member of the congregation, eager to prove himself worthy of the second chance he had been given. He participated in church activities, offering his time and skills to help others. This redemptive arc, however, took a twisted turn. The gratitude Derek felt for Michael morphed into something darker, a dangerous obsession fueled by misplaced affection and a sense of entitlement. The very man who had offered him salvation became the target of his betrayal, a cruel irony that would shatter the community and lead to unimaginable violence. The trust Michael placed in Derek became his undoing, a tragic testament to the destructive power of misplaced faith. The clinical, sterile environment of the doctor's office, usually a place of routine checkups, transformed into a chamber of dread. The air, thick with the antiseptic smell, felt heavy and suffocating. Michael Carter, typically a figure of unwavering composure, sat rigidly on the examination table, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. The doctor's voice, usually calm and reassuring, now carried a weight that threatened to crush him. "Mr. Carter, the results are back. You've tested positive for HIV." The words echoed in the small room, a chilling pronouncement that shattered the foundations of his reality. A wave of disbelief washed over him, followed by a sickening lurch in his stomach. This couldn't be real. He, Michael Carter, the respected pastor, the pillar of his community, now carried a virus that carried a stigma that would forever alter his life. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in, as the doctor began to explain the implications of the diagnosis. The medical terms, the statistics, the potential treatments, all blurred into a meaningless drone against the rising panic in his mind. He struggled to maintain his composure, to process the information, but his mind raced, consumed by a whirlwind of fear and confusion. A coldness spread through his veins, a chilling realization that his life, as he knew it, was irrevocably changed. The initial shock gave way to a gnawing sense of violation, a feeling that something precious had been stolen from him. As the doctor continued, a dark, unwelcome thought began to surface. He remembered the subtle changes in Naomi, the growing distance between them, the unexplained late nights. A flicker of suspicion, a seed of doubt, began to take root in the fertile ground of his fear. The questions began to form, sharp and accusatory, each one a painful stab at the heart of his once unwavering trust. Who? How? And most importantly, why? The answers, he knew, would unravel the carefully constructed facade of his perfect life. The doctor's diagnosis, a cold, clinical pronouncement, acted as a catalyst, transforming Michael's initial shock into a seething, all-consuming rage. The quiet pastor, known for his gentle demeanor, now wrestled with a tempest of emotions, a violent storm that threatened to tear him apart. The feeling of betrayal, a deep, visceral wound, fueled a relentless determination. He would not remain a victim. He would uncover the truth, expose the source of his suffering, no matter the consequences. His mind, once a sanctuary of faith and compassion, became a battleground, a place where suspicion and accusation clashed. He meticulously replayed every interaction with Naomi, every conversation, every shared moment, searching for hidden meanings, for subtle clues that would reveal her deception. He examined their shared life with a newfound scrutiny, dissecting their routines, their habits, the very fabric of their relationship, seeking the cracks in their seemingly perfect facade. He became a detective in his own life, driven by a desperate need to understand the source of his pain. He traced back their history, seeking the point where their paths diverged, the moment when trust was irrevocably broken. The image of Naomi, once a symbol of unwavering love and devotion, became distorted, tainted with suspicion and doubt. The gentle woman he had cherished now appeared as a figure of deception, a source of unimaginable pain. The realization of her betrayal was a crushing blow, a devastating assault on his carefully constructed world. The man of faith, the respected pastor, was now consumed by a burning desire for justice, a thirst for retribution that threatened to consume his very soul, pushing him to the edge of an abyss. Where are you watching from? Have you ever encountered a similar case in your city or state, where the lines between faith and violence blurred so drastically? What would you do if you found yourself in Michael's position, facing the devastating realization of such a profound betrayal? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. The pastor's study, once a sanctuary of prayer and reflection, transformed into a command center. Michael Carter, driven by a cold determination, meticulously sifted through the digital detritus of his life. He obtained Naomi's phone records, the long lists of calls and text messages becoming a damning indictment of her infidelity. The repeated calls to a number he didn't recognize, the late-night texts filled with coded language, the sheer volume of communication. It all pointed to a secret life he never knew existed. He cross-referenced the unknown number with online databases, and the name Derek Malone flashed on the screen, a name that sent a jolt of disbelief through him. He accessed their shared bank accounts, tracing the flow of funds. Small, regular withdrawals, cash transactions that couldn't be explained, all pointing to secret rendezvous and hidden expenses. He installed a tracking app on Naomi's vehicle, a digital leash that revealed her movements with chilling precision. The routes she took, the places she visited, the hours she spent at locations he didn't recognize, the evidence mounted. Each piece a sharp shard of betrayal. One evening, the tracking app showed her car parked outside a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. He drove there, his heart pounding in his chest, and watched as Naomi emerged from a room, her hand clasped in Derek's. The sight, a brutal confirmation of his suspicions, was like a physical blow. He watched as they kissed, the image searing itself into his memory. The irony of it all was a cruel twist of fate. Derek Malone, the ex-con he had taken under his wing, the man he had given a second chance, was now the one who had stolen his wife, his trust, his very sense of self. The man he redeemed was now the architect of his destruction. He discovered emails between them, filled with passionate declarations and plans for a future that excluded him. "I can't wait until we can be together openly," Naomi wrote. "Michael suspects nothing. We'll finally be free." Derek's replies were equally damning, filled with promises of a life together, a life that was built on the ruins of Michael's own. The depth of the betrayal was staggering. The man he trusted, the woman he loved, had conspired to destroy him, to dismantle his life piece by piece. The redemption he offered had been repaid with treachery. The faith he placed in them had been shattered, and the pain was a consuming inferno. Michael arranged a seemingly normal dinner at their home, the warm lighting and familiar setting a stark contrast to the icy resolve within him. He presented the evidence, the phone records, bank statements, and tracking data, laying out her infidelity with surgical precision. Naomi, initially defiant, crumbled under the weight of his evidence. She attempted to guilt him, her voice laced with a desperate plea. "You're pushing me away," she cried. "You were never there for me. You only care about your church." She attempted to twist the narrative, making him the villain of their story. "You don't understand what I've been going through," she sobbed, trying to manipulate him with emotional appeals. Then, in a desperate attempt to salvage the situation, she offered a ludicrous explanation. "We're just friends," she insisted, her voice trembling. "I'm helping him find a wife." Michael listened, his face an impassive mask, absorbing her words like a sponge. He even nodded, offering a semblance of understanding, a chilling facade that concealed his true intentions. "I understand," he said softly, his voice devoid of emotion. "I understand everything." He acted as if he was processing her words, as if he was considering her point of view. This feigned understanding gave her a false sense of security, a fatal miscalculation. He had long since moved beyond rage, beyond pain, into a realm of cold, calculated retribution. He watched her every reaction, every flicker of guilt in her eyes, every desperate attempt to justify her actions. He knew that the betrayal was too profound, the wound too deep, to ever heal. The man of faith had become a man of vengeance. He began to plan, meticulously and methodically, his actions driven by a chilling sense of purpose. He envisioned the scene, the confrontation, the final act of his tragic drama. He considered every detail, every possible outcome, his mind a steel trap, closing in on its prey. He would bring his own form of justice. He would make them pay. He would make them understand the consequences of their betrayal. He would ensure that his pain was felt, that his suffering was acknowledged. His calm demeanor concealed a storm of vengeance. He began to set the stage for the final act, ensuring that every piece was in place. The December evening settled, bringing with it a biting cold that seeped into everything. Earlier that day, Naomi had mentioned a quick trip to the supermarket, a seemingly innocent errand. However, a nagging suspicion gnawed at him, a feeling that something wasn't right. He decided to follow her, a silent observer in his own life. He watched as she bypassed the brightly lit grocery store and instead parked at a rundown motel on the edge of town. The sight of her embracing Derek, their kiss a brutal confirmation of his worst fears, sent a jolt of cold fury through him. Michael waited, his patience a taut wire stretched to its breaking point. He watched the motel room, the cheap neon sign flickering a sickly yellow glow, illuminating the doorway. He waited until they emerged, Naomi and Derek, hand in hand, their faces flushed with a misplaced sense of triumph. He stepped out of the shadows, his presence a sudden, chilling intrusion into their world. "Naomi," he said, his voice a low, guttural growl that sent a shiver down their spines. "Derek." Their smiles vanished, replaced by a look of stark terror. Naomi's eyes widened, her hand flying to her mouth. Derek, instinctively protective, stepped in front of her, his body tensing. "Michael," he stammered, his voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" Michael's eyes, burning with a cold, unwavering intensity, fixed on them. "You people," he said, his voice thick with a venomous rage. "You destroyed my life. You took everything from me." He paused, his gaze sweeping over them, taking in their fear. "You think you could just betray me like this? You think you could just walk away?" Naomi tried to speak, to offer some desperate, pathetic excuse, but the words caught in her throat. Derek, realizing the gravity of the situation, tried to reason with him. "Michael, man, just calm down. We can talk about this." But Michael was beyond reason. He had crossed a line, a point of no return. He turned and walked back to his vehicle, the silence heavy with unspoken threats. The couple, sensing the imminent danger, turned and ran, their footsteps echoing on the cold asphalt. They ran with a desperate, frantic energy, their fear fueling their flight. Michael started his vehicle, the engine roaring to life, a mechanical beast unleashed. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, the tires screeching as he pursued them. The vehicle became a weapon, a steel and chrome instrument of his vengeance. The impact was brutal, a sickening thud that silenced their cries. He reversed, then accelerated again, ensuring the act was complete, the finality of his actions echoing in the stillness of the night. The dim motel lights cast long, grotesque shadows, painting a macabre tableau of death. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood, a stark and chilling testament to the violence that had just transpired. The engine idled, a low, menacing rumble, the only sound in the deathly quiet parking lot. The act was swift and decisive, a chilling execution carried out with a terrible sense of purpose, a brutal punctuation mark on their betrayal. After the brutal act, Michael sat in his car, his hands resting calmly on the steering wheel. His face was devoid of emotion, a blank canvas reflecting the chilling detachment of his actions. He made no attempt to flee, no sign of remorse or panic. He simply waited, his gaze fixed on the scene before him. The flashing blue and red lights of the police cruisers pierced the darkness, their arrival a stark punctuation to the night's violence. Officers approached cautiously, their weapons drawn, their voices tense. The scene that greeted them was one of brutal finality. The lifeless bodies, the blood-soaked asphalt, the chilling calm of the man sitting in his car. It painted a picture of calculated violence, a deliberate act of retribution. The officers apprehended Michael without resistance. He offered no explanation, no justification. He simply allowed himself to be taken into custody, his silence more chilling than any confession. The trial of Michael Carter became a media spectacle, a morality play that captivated the nation. The congregation, once his devoted followers, were divided. Some, horrified by his actions, condemned him as a monster. Others, grappling with the complexities of his betrayal, struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the man who committed such violence. The courtroom became a battleground for conflicting narratives. Was Michael a victim of unspeakable betrayal, driven to madness by grief and rage? Or was he a cold-blooded killer, a man who used his faith as a justification for murder? The prosecution painted him as a calculating individual, a man who planned and executed his revenge with chilling precision. The defense argued for diminished capacity, citing the emotional trauma of the betrayal and the devastating impact of the HIV diagnosis. The trial became a public debate, a forum for exploring the boundaries of justice, the limits of forgiveness, and the dark corners of the human heart. Was Michael justified in his actions? Is there ever a situation where murder can be considered righteous? What would have been a just punishment for Michael? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. This was not a crime of passion, a spontaneous act of rage. It was a calculated execution, a deliberate act of vengeance. Michael Carter, the respected pastor, transformed into a figure of chilling resolve. He meticulously planned and executed his revenge, driven by a desire to inflict the same pain he had suffered. The act was a brutal testament to the destructive power of betrayal, a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most pious individuals.